Hello, I'm Chico West.
And I'm Shannon West.
And I'm the No Filter.
And I'm the Filter.
With Filter Optional. Remember, you can catch us on iTunes as Filter Optional, on the Casa Colina Treatment YouTube page.
Yes, under Casa Colina. You search Casa Colina Treatment on the YouTube page.
And it'll come up, and then you can see all the episodes, or on our Facebook page. That's on right. Casa Colina Treatment Facebook page.
Yes, yes.
You know, so we're excited once again to be back here. You know what we talked about last week, we're going to expand on it, was, you know, ADD, and kind of gave you an overview of ADD, games played with ADD. You know, we didn't go into all the different types of ADD, but we did talk about some signs and symptoms to look for.
In our own personal life and experiences, yeah.
Yeah, but we also talked about boys and how boys will be boys.
Yes.
You know, it's good.
Boys are boys.
Boys are boys. Yes.
They are boys.
They are boys. And so we talked about that as well, and in those games played. We're excited to be with y'all today. It's another new day. We love doing this podcast. I like doing this with you.
Yeah, no, it's fun. It's good.
It is good. And so, the deal is you can always, send us questions through the Facebook page.
Right.
And so those are things. We'll have other episodes if you know us and you want us to talk about something.
Well, and if you go back and listen to our episodes and you want more information, then we're happy to address that too, because we like to do that, because when we're filming, it's just kind of rolling with it, and then if we need to get back to something, we can do that.
Yeah, and we like that we're actually doing this series. We did kind of a little codependency series that we might come back on as well.
Yeah.
So this is exciting stuff. But what we were talking about, and I love the research that you did, Shannon.
It wasn't. Yeah, okay.
But I like ADD and addiction. Is there a correlation?
That was my tagline. That wasn't research that I did, but with the research that I did, I was like, is there a correlation? And
I say yes, there is a big correlation, because what's going on is with people with ADD, you're impulsive, your brain isn't, in the prefrontal cortex isn't, lots of times isn't stimulated, and so there isn't this firing, and the prefrontal cortex is that sense of judgment and stuff right there. And the deal is with what's going on with marijuana, what's going on with alcohol, other drugs and stuff like that. If someone goes to the doctor and gets prescribed medication for ADD, they're usually getting prescribed a stimulant.
Yeah, okay, but let's lead up to that.
I will, but
okay,
what I was saying is with this with ADD, lots of times, adolescents, even adults with ADD, marijuana is the drug of choice.
Right.
And do you know how come it's the drug of choice?
Well, I'm assuming because we talked about last week that prefrontal cortex that you're talking about is a hot spot at rest and during activity for people, and marijuana calms that hot spot.
It does. It calms it, and it chills it out, because me personally, being someone with attention deficit disorder, is like my brain's always running, and
hot. It's always hot.
And it's always moving, and boom, 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 and all of a sudden, but at the same time, in that prefrontal cortex, the reason why the stimulants work is it helps me focus and stuff like that, on task at hand. But the deal is, with marijuana or with alcohol, it's a calming effect. All of a sudden, I can calm down if someone chooses to smoke, and so there's a lot of that self-medication and stuff like that.
Yes.
But that's what happens when it's firing. There's a good. I love this 29-year-old named Jennifer in this article. What did Jennifer say? She's from Fayetteville. She said, felt that her ADHD made it hard for her to fit in except with the crowd that smoked marijuana. She says, they accepted me. I used to think they don't care if I'm a little crazy. if I don't finish sentences and walk out of the room while they're talking.
Right.
And
Right.
right there, it's like if I'm ADD, all of a sudden I've talked, I'm done. I'm not waiting around to listen.
Right. Right.
You know,
Exactly.
and so, so it even becomes that communal feeling as well.
Yes.
Because if people are smoking and you just get up and walk out in mid conversation, they're not really focused on that.
Right. But it's also an age-old stigma too that like the people that I know that have ADD are quite bright, like you, including yourself.
Well, thank you.
Okay, but quite bright. But I think that did you ever feel stupid in school?
Oh, all the time.
And
And
is that a common because of the automatic negative thoughts?
Oh
the
yes,
ants?
the ants. The automatic negative thoughts got me to, I believed those automatic negative thoughts in my head.
Right. And so when you were sitting in a classroom and you saw people seemingly outperforming you, did you feel stupid and like you will never measure up?
Oh yeah, and I struggled with just that less than mentality. I struggled with those things. So when I did use alcohol and drugs back in high school and the first few years of college, it took away those
You didn't
negative
feel
thoughts.
stupid.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I didn't.
Or you didn't care.
I didn't care.
You didn't care.
And the deal is that also it's not about drinking and drugging isn't about how much you use, what's going on internally. I have that allergy of the body and that obsession of the mind, and people with ADHD have a greater risk for that because it becomes their comforter.
Right.
It becomes like your little kid that has a blankie or a pacifier.
Well, so it makes complete sense. And then also, I've read in the research that, ADD and ADHD can be a lack of a dopamine
Yes.
in your brain. And so the if you choose medication, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but if you choose medication, that actually raises the dopamine level in your brain, and so then that makes you feel normal.
Yeah, and dopamine is that natural chemical that everybody has it. But when someone with ADHD or ADD, their dopamine receptors aren't firing.
Right.
And so there might be some hot spots, but then there's a lot of spots that aren't firing.
It's like being a diabetic and your insulin isn't firing, and so you have to supplement that. I mean, it's a chemical imbalance, and I think some of the behaviors that come from that chemical imbalance with ADD are seen as very negative behaviors, acting out in school, not being able to stay in your seat,
And
all those
in
things.
some ways they are, not social norms, or they are
Right.
not healthy, or getting up in mid conversation and leaving a party or something.
Right.
I've been known to do that, but the deal is, even though they're not norms or inappropriate, what we do with people that are ADD in our life, we don't help it when we get upset with them, and then
Right.
there becomes that shaming component.
Right, because my point was going to be, if somebody's going into a diabetic coma in a classroom, you're going to stop everything and get them some insulin and,
Or some orange juice or something
yes,
like that.
something, you're going to address it in a compassionate way. And so I think that if you have a child that has ADD or a spouse, that you have to come at it from a place of compassion and not shame, obviously. And teachers need to do the same, but
But sometimes they're just overwhelmed. I mean,
That's what I
we're
was gonna say.
not
It's
gonna.
very hard to be.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
Yeah,
if they
I
have
was a teacher. I was a teacher, so when
Yeah.
you have 32 in your class, and
Well, and
very
here's the
hard.
deal: is we think that about 15% of the population, might have it. With that 15%, that 15% that are ADD have a 3 times greater risk for addiction.
Right.
And
And so, what do you think about? I know that a lot of parents, when they realize that their child might suffer from ADD, they avoid the conversation at a young age about whether they choose to medicate or not, we can talk about that in a second. But they avoid the conversation of telling that child that they're at a higher risk, for alcohol and drug abuse. I mean, I would think that it would be best to go ahead and let them know that the chemical imbalance in their brain might draw them into, once they decide to try that or experience, feel normal.
Well, and I love that question, Shannon, because a lot of times I see parents not beginning that conversation, even at an early age, third, fourth, fifth grade, is because the deal is
You're afraid you're going to turn them on to it.
bingo. Remember, me in my office, I have a bell. I would hit a bell for you.
Yeah.
You're right on task. And
I mean,
so-
it's like not talking to your kids about porn and
Yes.
things like that. I remember when our kids got a phone. Well, they didn't get phones till high school, but when they got an iTouch, which they had access to apps and things like that when they had Wi-Fi. But I remember telling both of them, no porn. And they're looking at me like, how does she even know that word, first of all? And I mean, just terrified.
But like right there, like your
but I-
look. I just saw your look.
Yeah.
The deer in the headlights. But
Yeah,
it's
they're-
like we need to
But
have
if
those.
if I'm afraid to say the word porn to my kids because I think that it'll introduce them to an idea, I think it's the same with drugs and alcohol. We're afraid to introduce the idea of drugs and alcohol to our young children because it'll give them an idea.
Yes.
It's why we don't talk about depression enough too, and suicide and things like that, because we're afraid it's going to give them an idea.
Yeah, and so right there, you answered the question earlier.
answered my own question.
Yes, you
Yeah.
did a good job. It's like we are fearful that it will introduce that idea instead of saying, hey, there is a greater chance, greater likelihood, propensity, because of the way you're wired
Right.
to, start experimenting because you think you found the cure.
So then that's a good place to really start finding alternatives
Yes.
at a young age. And, they say, those books that you mentioned, the Amen,
Healing ADD.
Healing ADD, and the different types and all that kind of stuff offer a lot of, natural, you just have to think about when a brain is stimulated. Exercise is just so important. And so, things like that, or
Well,
your
here's
diet
here's
and-
the diet. Let's talk about the diet
Yeah.
because right now I'm really trying to stay focused on, not taking carbs and sugars out of my life. Completely.
If you listen to our New Year's episode, we talk about me not being his keto coach, but it seems that I am. But
Yeah. But just literally in the last 4 days, I feel more focused. I feel more
Yeah.
tuned in because I haven't had any carbs. And carbs break down into sugar.
right.
But the carbs are everywhere.
Right.
And so it's hard to eat that.
It is.
Also, healthy fats, and that's, you get those from some nuts too, from almonds and pecans and other things like that. But healthy fats, avocados,
Yeah.
And protein. And so with that dietary intervention, and when I say diet, it's not actual diet, it's
Right.
just about, for us, it's healthy, or what we like to call clean eating.
And it's kind of singular to you and ADD, because we all have conditions that require probably dietary intervention. And for example, my colitis, I can't eat salads. So you can eat salads because they won't have carbs or sugar in them and things like that. But so I don't know. I'm saying, as a parent and as a family, you have to really figure out what is going to be the best intervention for your child at a young age. And last week we talked about how boys are active anyway, and for them to automatically be diagnosed is a danger too. But
Yeah, but here's one of the big things for dietary intervention is drinking a lot of water.
Yes.
That really helps lubricate the brain.
well,
And
hydration. So that can be in the form of, the hydration stick. If your kid wants a grape flavored, I have a great no sugar, stick that you put in water, but hydration.
hydration, hydration. And we found that, to be true. And that just works out, if you're an athlete in college, they're all about hydration. If
Yeah.
you're athlete in middle school and stuff like that, in high school, it's like hydration.
Yeah.
We were big fans of that. But that it also helps out with people with ADHD. If they're hydrated, some of those symptoms will decrease. They won't go away, but they'll decrease.
Right.
And that it'll help stimulate the brain as well. So when you, so before you first go to, if your child is struggling with ADHD, this is kind of a little PSA. Don't automatically go to medication. First look at some of the dietary intervention. First look at getting them some omega-3s and taking some fish oils and stuff like
Well,
that.
and also the automatic negative thoughts, the ants, you have to know that your child is having those. And so you address them. You say, are you believing a lie that you're telling yourself, or is it the truth? And if it's the truth, then let's figure it out. But, if they're saying, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, is that a lie that they're telling themselves?
Yeah, and the earlier you can start with eating foods from the rainbow, the chances are your kids will do that. Sometimes we give people food. If we have people out to casa, all of a sudden I took away, no, let's not bring donuts, because that's just gonna all of a sudden increase the sugar intake, and then
Right.
all of a sudden you're gonna get down. But the rainbow means put natural foods of many different colors into your diet, include blueberries, pomegranates, yellow squash, and red bell peppers. This will boost the antioxidant levels in your body and help keep your brain young.
Right.
And so the more you can keep that brain young, that's a good thing right there. So, you look at that. Also, what Shannon, you were talking about earlier is just school strategies, how to be compassionate for someone.
Yeah.
We're talking about, does ADD and addiction have some correlation? Yes, it does, because, both, we're not very compassionate to people that are drug addicts.
Right.
And we're not very compassionate to people with ADD.
Right. Right. 'Cause
they don't.
can, I know from personal experience, they can be annoying.
What does that mean? Are you implying?
I'm not even speaking about you.
Are you implying
I'm not
something
even
here?
speaking about you. I'm speaking about other people in my life that have ADD. They can be annoying. And then they have good friends that say that they're annoying. I don't want to throw people under the bus.
You're implying.
It's not. I'm not. I'm really not talking about you.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
I'm really not.
That's all right though.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about I'm not. But only annoying because their brain works differently than someone else's, and they just have to reel it back in. But so what if you are the parent of a child and you've kind of done all those things, and you are,
And you still need something.
yes, and you still need something. Okay, so what's the story on that? To medicate or not to medicate?
I think there's definitely times that, medication, can be a great tool, and a tool used appropriately, the way it's prescribed, by the physician. The deal is, what also you need to do is, I love telling parents this. A lot of parents end up getting, medication for their children or their preteens and stuff,
Right.
from their
Pediatrician.
and the pediatrician, that's not their specialty.
Right.
And so they don't understand that. But if you break your leg, and you need, surgery or cast, your pediatrician's not going to do that.
Right.
Right.
No, you're right.
If you have juvenile diabetes, your pediatrician's going to refer you.
Right, to an endocrinologist or whatever.
Yes.
Is that who
no,
does it?
no, I don't. Maybe.
I don't-
You just pulled that out of your rear.
I did. Wow. I'm a doctor.
Yeah. But no, you go to a psychiatrist.
Right.
And psychiatrists are physicians.
Right.
They're MDs, but their specialty is the brain.
And I think you especially have to pay attention to, I know, because you have taken medication in the past,
Yes, I don't
Okay, you
take any
don't
medication. I
now.
think it's about 5 years. I was thinking about that this
Yeah,
morning.
you do not now, but you had to go through several because, and as an adult, you can express those side effects. And I do know of a child that went through like 3 different medications, and one just didn't work. The second one made him very depressed, down, and that is the last thing you want. And then the third one seemed to be, working okay, but the parent had to have an open dialogue with that child about how these medications may or may not affect you. And I think,
And so, but the good thing is, you could help out that parent, because you had done your own research. You had understood, the effects on the brain. You knew the questions. And so lots of times we don't want you to go to your pediatrician. That's easy.
Right.
The pediatrician has, what do you call those people that come and sling meds? Drug reps come and
Yeah.
they get the drug reps and oh yes, here's this. But the deal is the pediatrician's busy and they're, seeing kids all day long, but they're not spending the time, really asking the good diagnostic questions to
Right.
understand the different types of ADD. Because sometimes with the dopamine and stuff like that, if you're classic ADD, the inattentive or the impulsive, type 1 and 2, man, the stimulants work.
right.
But I am more the over-focused ADD. In that over-focused ADD, the stimulant works, to help me focus, but then it also doesn't affect the singular gyrus.
Right.
And so not affecting the singular gyrus, for me, some of those meds really created some anxiety and some depression.
Well, you had some joint pain and some
I
things
had
like that.
that was just side effects, but it wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't
Oh, right.
addressing that depression or anxiety.
Right. Right.
And then there's anxiety induced ADD.
right.
There's limbic ADD. There's all sorts of ADD that have a lot of the classic signs and symptoms, but also it just affects different parts of the brain besides the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
Mine affects the prefrontal and the singular gyrus. And so I would
Right.
get stuck. And now, my deal is understanding that, and I'm not against medication now that I've taken it, now that I'm back off of it.
Right.
But I am saying, I'm a 50-year-old man and I know what to do.
Right. Yeah. And so, which came first, the chicken or the egg, do you think, with the
Addiction.
AD addiction? Yeah. I mean, like, if people choose to medicate,
I never was medicated, so my addiction
Right.
was there.
right.
I didn't get medicated until I was 9 years sober.
Right.
That's 20 years ago. I have 29 years of sobriety now.
Right. Right.
You know,
But if you're given the coping skills, I guess, through your parent, if the parent really understands the brain and how it works and how you can
and I'm not sure.
intervene.
Yeah, I'm not. It's
even
more
if
about
it
the
includes
intervention.
medication.
I think it's more about the intervention because
Yeah.
the brain is so complex and we're still learning more and more about it.
Yes, all the time, and especially with all this concussion stuff. And I've heard that kids with ADD have a higher chance of getting a concussion, and that didn't make sense to me until I did some research on it. And it's because they are always active. They're very they go. I mean,
They go 100 miles an hour.
100 miles
all
an hour
the time.
all the time, and they're also not gonna
That impulsivity. They don't.
they're not
pause.
going to recognize. They're not going to pause when they're like if they get hit. Whereas some kid that maybe doesn't have ADD or whatever gets hit, and they're like, "I'm sitting out the rest of the game." Whereas the ADD kid's like, "This is awesome.
Yeah, they get stimulated.
This is
right
stimulating
there.
me. This is making me feel good. I want to go and I want to hit again."
Yes.
And then they get a concussion because of that. But so when you understand that, you can teach them, okay, if you get hit, you might need to sit out. They still probably won't, but
But therein lies the deal. Is like, man, helping them understand how, they function, helping them understand, that, hey, this is just your makeup, the gift God gave you.
Exactly.
And so for, even after graduating grad school, starting my business and stuff like that, I struggled. I didn't want to tell people I was ADD. I
Right.
avoided it.
Right.
But the more I talk about it, it takes away the
Because
power.
I think and I also think people try to cage it.
Oh,
And people with ADD are the last people that want to be caged.
Oh,
So you
big
don't want
time.
to tell anybody, but it's
But
kind of like,
I have,
can't you control yourself? Can't you control yourself? No, I can't. So-
and one of my good friends, I mean, he's ADD like me, and you and his wife, that's Chad and Chico.
Yeah. You just outed him.
I outed him,
Oh,
but he
well,
has
yeah, you wanna
ADD.
see- yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
say who his wife was, so it
No.
could be Chad someone.
Well, anyway, yeah.
we don't know who Chad is.
we
We
can
have a
definitely-
nickname for Chad.
Yes. We can definitely commiserate, she and I, on, like how to operate within our own home and
But
not cage you all, because
But the great thing is with him, he's a good friend. But I love how he thinks, man. I've bounced ideas off of him. We get stuff on the dry
Yes.
erase board. We come up with business plans. He's a brilliant
yes,
man.
very, very smart. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I said early on, that I think that
Well, the guy who
would-
started JetBlue is ADD.
What,
There's
like
a lot.
Branson?
No,
No,
that's
but in that-
that's Virgin.
Yeah, but isn't he ADD too?
I think he's ADD as well. But a lot of people that are entrepreneurs that think outside the box.
Yes.
That's my deal.
But
That's
they
my
need
saying.
people like me.
Yes, they need the filters because a lot of people with no filter.
No, the implementer. The implementer.
The implementer. Yes, I'm a visionary. I have ideas.
Yes.
I'm all over the map.
Yes, you have to implement.
Yeah, and I need containment. I have you, Kay at at Casa Colina.
Yes.
She wants me to speak at this big state conference, and the title that I came up with was way inappropriate.
Yeah.
So, but I want to talk about it anyway. I like to, that ADD person likes to stir it up.
Yes, pot stirrers.
Yes, we get
Fight
stimulated.
starter.
You get stimulated with that, but at the same time, it's like as the pot stirrer, you come up with some ideas, and those ideas are good.
Yeah.
And so medication or not medication, yeah, it depends. But get some research, do
and
the evidence.
Do the research, and then also I think the most important thing to get out of this is to talk to your kids early and often about the effects of drugs and alcohol and pornography and everything else. Use those words. Don't think you're going to give them ideas.
Yeah, because they're going to
discover it on their own.
They're going to get those ideas from their friends. Who would you
Exactly.
rather talk about porn, about drugs and alcohol? Would you rather have a 10, 12, 14, 16-year-old, or would you rather talk to them about it?
Well, but I think telling them, if you know that they have ADD and you are working within your own home trying to do that, I think you need to tell them, there are certain drugs and alcohol that might make you feel okay. Do you think that's okay to tell them that?
Yes. I
Might
think,
make you feel okay, but
here's the deal they know it.
But it's not healthy. It's not
of
safe or healthy or anything like that.
And what we do know also about addiction is if we can keep someone away from using any chemicals up to age 22 because of the brain development,
Right.
the chances of addiction decrease to almost just 1%. But see, the tobacco industry, they've been, with Joe Cool Camel and the Marlboro Man.
You know what?
I mean,
and we don't
there's-
even have time to address that, but nicotine is one of those things on the list that calms your hot spot.
Oh, it calms my hot spot so well.
They're going to get a hold of a vape in 6th grade,
and they're going to be hitting
and
that
they're going to
thing.
be like,
And then if they get a
this
vape
is
with
great.
one of the vape pens that has the marijuana in it,
Then they're going
bam!
to, they could,
they're off to the races,
yes.
baby.
So I think it's important to have the conversation early
And often.
and often. And
What we were just down, my buddy, it's
ahead.
good. Kids will rebel against it. It's good. Here's an example. Chad my buddy Chad, who I was talking about, he goes, Chico, let's go hear this speaker. Let's take our boys. And we took our boys to hear a speaker on pornography. You know, neither of the boys were happy. But this past weekend, you know, our 15-year-old was telling his aunt and uncle, oh yeah, they took us. Hey, we're going to eat, and then all of a sudden we're listening to the speaker talk about porn. You know, so he got it. You know, he wasn't upset after the fact. He was glad.
He was, and he's able to talk about it now too.
Yeah, and he's open about it, and he goes, yeah, we were the only kids in there, you know.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really positive, you know. So right there is a prime example of that. So hopefully, you know, we've answered some of your questions. There's a lot of good information on the internet. There's a good book, Healing ADD by Dr. Amen. I like it because it's real easy to remember.
Yes.
But there's a lot of other good stuff. We're excited. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to The Filter and me, The No Filter.
Yes.